everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to bring you guys, as you saw from the title and the thumbnail, my top 10 favorite romance novellas of 2021. I had to make a separate video about novellas because in 2021 I truly went down a rabbit hole with novellas, especially over this past summer. And I discovered so many new favorite authors through reading these novellas. Like, I just had to make a separate video about them and gush about them with you guys. A couple things to note. I am filming this on New Year's Eve, so Happy New Year when you're watching this. So obviously if you hear any booms in the background, that is hopefully fireworks and nothing else. And also you will notice from this top 10 list, I clearly love chaos with novellas in particular. I don't know what that says about me. I'm not sure why, but with the exception of maybe like 2 or 3 of the novellas on this list, pretty much all of these are just chaotic in every way, and I'm obsessed. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into it? I did rank these from my number 10 favorite of the year to my number 1 favorite romance novella of 2021. So before you watch this video, I would actually love it if you would press pause and leave a comment down below with what you think will be my top favorite novella. I'm curious what you guys think about that. So let's get into this countdown though. So number 10 is going to be Scream for Us by Molly Doyle. Boy, did this novella take me by surprise. Oh my God, like this was totally, I picked this up on a whim. It just looked like a fun Halloween reverse harem novella, and that is what it is, but it also is so much more than I ever could have thought or hoped for. We have our main character Quinn. She just randomly goes to this Halloween party and she meets these 3 men that are all dressed as different horror movie villains. Like we have one who's Ghostface from Scream, we have one who looks like Michael Myers from Halloween, and then another one who looks like Jason Voorhees. And so things get crazy and steamy and just chef's kiss with the steam. But also this has like the perfect amount of like horror movie gore vibes, and coming from someone like me who does not like watching gory movies or really reading things that are really gory, it's really saying something that I truly enjoyed the parts where it got bloody and gory, because basically Quinn tells these 3 guys about the people that bullied her in high school and where they're going to be on Halloween night. They have like this tradition that they do every year, and so the guys decide to show up and murder everybody. So you've got steam, you've got literal murder of a lot of people, and you've got a Halloween party. It's, yeah, I mean, I guess it's everything you could ever want from an erotic novella with horror movie vibes. So yeah, I absolutely loved this. Of course, gave it 5 stars, can't recommend highly enough. So for number 9, we have a novella by an author that is going to be featured quite a bit in this video. So that is Her Virgin Duke by Nicola Davidson. Nicola Davidson is an author that I discovered this year. I think most of the authors in this video I discovered this year. And she has quickly become one of my favorite historical romance authors. The way that she writes truly erotic historical romance, but neither the eroticism or the romance is eclipsed by the other. It's like perfectly balanced. So this one, oh my God. First of all, like nobody has read it. It has like 87 ratings on Goodreads. That is a crime. This is technically a Christmas novella, but you could read this at any time of the year. I mean, we could all use some Christmas cheer throughout the rest of the year, am I right? But this one's about Bennett. He's a duke. He has just come into his own in terms of truly running his dukedom, and he feels kind of lost, especially in terms of finding a wife, because a duke's duty is to find a wife and produce an heir for the dukedom. And so his plan is to just make a list of eligible women and, I don't know, kind of interview them as if it's a job. But he ends up going to this pleasure club that Delilah, known as the Mistress of Sin, runs. And so they meet. Delilah learns that Bennett is a virgin, as you can tell from the title, and things get steamy very quickly. This was so good because Bennett, oh my God, he seems like this shy and like socially awkward dude, but in the bedroom he like quickly turns dominant and just hot and like I also loved Delilah's character because she's running her own pleasure club, but it's also more than just a sex club. Like, there's like a gambling den, it's a supper club, like there's just so many things. And the fact that this woman opened this business on her own during the Regency era and it's been so successful, that's just awesome. And I just loved this match between Bennett and Delilah, who are two seemingly very different people. All right, number 8, we are getting into a lot of novellas by Jessica Kane. This is another author that I discovered this year, and I clearly went down a rabbit hole with her, especially over this past summer and even into the fall, though I haven't read a novella from her since like Halloween, which is a crime in my mind. I absolutely love pretty much everything I've read from Jessica Kane. I will say there's duds out there. There are definitely some duds. Actually, one of them is going to be featured in my worst books of 2021 video, so be on the lookout for that. But wow, like, she truly is the queen of chaos and she just works so well for me. I'm just absolutely obsessed, as you will see throughout this video. So the first book that I'm going to mention for number 8 is An Angel for the Devil. This is going to be a very unpopular opinion. I feel like a lot of people kind of despise this novella, and I can understand why. This is about Alistair, who is a cold-hearted billionaire, and he, among other things, he is a landlord for this kind of crappy apartment complex. And Shelby, our heroine, she is just about like 18 years old. This is a very common thing with Jessica Kane. She has like these young virginal heroines and these older, more like alpha heroes. And we have Shelby, she's just the sweetest person ever. Basically, her family can't pay the rent, and her family come up with this genius plan basically to trade Shelby for free rent. Yeah, so there's that. And I will totally admit that this premise is bonkers, but as we've already established, I love chaos. I am trash for romances where we have a sweet character who breaks through like the cold-heartedness of the other main character. That's totally what happens in this one. So good. Also, something very common with Jessica Kane novellas is that most of them have a lot of daddy kink, and this one is no exception. So if you're a fan of that kink, you will enjoy this one. This one, for some reason, just really worked for me. I was really invested in their story. The steam, of course, is always there with Jessica Kane. And I had a fun time. I feel like with especially novellas like this with these completely ridiculous plots, you really do just have to like suspend your disbelief and go with the flow, because otherwise, yeah, you're not gonna have a fun time with them. So for number 7 on this list, I have 2 novellas in this slot because they have a very similar premise to one another, and I read them like a few days apart. So in my mind, it almost feels like one story, even though they're about completely different characters. Again, these are by Jessica Kane. These are her 2 stalker romances that I truly loved this year. The first one I'm going to talk about is My Best Friend, My Stalker. This one, I gotta refer to my notes. This one is about Peyton and Granger. I remember at the beginning of this, Peyton is running away from her stepbrother who is attempting to assault her, and Granger just happens to be like driving down the road. He falls in love with her at first sight. By the way, Jessica Kane is the queen of insta-love, which for novellas it works, but for full novels it doesn't really work for me personally. But yeah, he like instantly falls in love with her. He persuades her into becoming his best friend and his roommate. Meanwhile, he's completely obsessed with her. He starts stalking her. I don't know what it is about stalker romances, but they just really work for me, and Jessica Kane just knows how to write them. Like, so good. And the other stalker romance that I read from Jessica Kane that I truly loved is My Husband, My Stalker. Now this one is definitely kind of a different plot. This one's about Jolie and Evan. Now this one, Jolie, I think was she kidnapped by a coworker, I think? And so she's featured on the news, and so Evan sees her on the news and immediately falls in love with her, and he decides to become this completely other man. He's actually a hitman, an assassin, but he like moves into Jolie's neighborhood, tells her that he's an insurance salesman, completely lies to her about who he is. They get married like 2 months later, and so it's a little bit of a marriage in trouble story, because like obviously when Jolie finds out the truth, she's like, wait, what is happening? But once again, he's completely obsessed with her. He stalks her. It is so good. And both of these novellas are so iconic in my mind because they both have an untraditional happily ever after. I'm pretty sure in both of them, the couples decide not to have kids because that's how obsessed they are with each other, and that is just Amazing. All right, we are now moving into number 6. This was another novella that completely took me by surprise with how much I loved it. This is The Dare by Harley LaRue. This is a book that you can't get on Amazon because it was banned by Amazon, which I think is absolute bullshit, but you can buy a Kindle format from Eden Books. I will leave that link down in the description below. It was worth every penny. It was like $3.99. This novella, oh my God, from the first page, I was just so invested and just like mesmerized by like Harley LaRue's writing and the story. This is kind of a bully romance. It's also second chance vibes going on. We have Manson and Jess. I have to like refer to my notes for character names because Lord knows I can't remember character names to save my life, but when they were in high school, Jess kind of bullied Manson, but it was a little bit more complex than that because Manson took it and he also dished it. It was just a very interesting relationship that they had in high school. And so now they are past high school. I believe Jess is in college, so it's been a few years. And so they are at this Halloween party where like all the people they went to high school with are at. So basically Manson and Jess start playing this game of beer pong that turns into this like humiliation game. And so that's one of the kinks that is featured in this is like humiliation. There's a lot of like dark and taboo kinks going on in this. And I was just addicted when I read this. I'm pretty sure I read this in one sitting. I mean, most of these novellas I could read in one sitting because they're usually around like 100 pages or less, but like I could not put this down. Oh my God, like I was on the edge of my seat because I couldn't wait to see what would happen next because really only the first part of this novella involves that game of beer pong that I mentioned, and then basically for the rest of the party, she has to be Manson's slave and like follow him around and stuff. And it's just like so good. And of course she brings it with the steam here. There's also like reverse harem vibes because some of Manson's friends show up to the party dressed as clowns, and it's something. It's truly something. Clearly I enjoy Halloween novellas, right? And I'm so excited because Harley LaRue is working on a full novel about, I guess it's gonna be a reverse harem situation. I don't think she's going to just be with Manson. I think she's going to be with the friends as well. So that's coming out in 2022 at some point, and I can't wait. All right, we are getting to my top 5 novellas that I read in 2021. This is where the ranking really got difficult for me because I pretty equally adored these 5 novellas. But for number 5, I decided to go with Breaking the Bully by Jessica Kane. This is actually the first novella that I read by this author, and I was shocked at how much I loved it, just because I feel like most people when they talk about Jessica Kane, they just talk about how ridiculous her novellas are and they're just like a good time, but like nothing all that substantial. And for me, this novella rocked my world. It's truly a bully romance done right. Bully romances are not usually my jam. I've only read a couple that I've really enjoyed, this being one of them. Oh my God, this is incredible. So this one is about Allie and Moore. And this is a new adult romance, actually. This takes place when they are seniors in high school. I personally think that Jessica Kane writes new adult so well. I can't wait to see her write more of those romances because yeah, I think that that is her best work. So we see kind of a flashback at the beginning of the book, 2 years before the main action of the story when they're both 16, and Moore is doing some work around Allie's house. Allie has a very abusive, both verbally and physically abusive father. And so Allie and Moore definitely have feelings for each other, but Allie's dad is like, if you don't ignore Moore, I'm going to make your life more of a living hell than it is. And so she ignores him. He takes that as her thinking that she's too good for him. And so he decides that the only way to get her attention is by bullying her. And the bullying isn't anything too vicious, I will say. Like, that's where I feel like bully romances can go too far, but the bullying in this really, it's not all that terrible. And God, this one was just so freaking good because Moore, our hero, he's a virgin hero. There is so much groveling that takes place in this novella once he learns why Allie has been ignoring him. You know, he just feels like shit for making her life a living hell at school when she already has to deal with so much at home. Talking about this novella just makes me want to reread it like right now. Oh my god. It's so freaking good. Obviously I can't recommend it highly enough. This is one that I would also recommend if you're just starting to get into Jessica Kane, because it was my very first Jessica Kane novella and I have not looked back since. So number 4, this is Bottle Rocket by Erin McClellan. This is technically book 2 in her So Over the Holidays novella series, but you can definitely read these out of order. This one centers around the 4th of July though, as you can kind of tell from the title. This is a second chance romance between Leo and Rosie. There are so many amazing things going on in this novella. Basically, they were together in high school. They broke up amicably. It's 13 years later. Rosie married somebody. She's now divorced. Leo is a very free spirit. He's an artist, and so he never got married or anything like that, but now he's back in their hometown. And so they reunite. Things get very steamy, but very swoony and emotional at the same time. Something you should know about Erin McClellan is that she's the queen of using toys in her steamy scenes. And this is amazing too because we have a submissive hero and a dominant heroine. I believe they're both bisexual as well. Like, there's just so many amazing things going for this book. And Rosie is more like straight-laced, guarded, and Leo is more sunshiny and free-spirited, and just that balances everything. I cannot recommend this highly enough. I cried a few times reading this because of just the emotions of this second chance, and it really seems like a happily ever after isn't going to be possible, but Erin McClellan makes it work. It's incredible. So number 3 and number 2 are by the same author and are part of the same novella series. So number 3, this was really hard for me to differentiate 2 from 3, but for 3 I decided to go with The Devil's Submission by Nicola Davidson. This is book 2 in her Fallen series. It's a series that centers around these 3 men who are best friends, and they run this sex club called Fallen together. And so this one is a marriage in trouble, erotic, historical romance. Oh, there are so many things to love about this novella. I feel like Stefan from SNL because this novella has everything. We have a plus-sized heroine. We also have a dominant heroine, a submissive hero. The angst between these two, because it's a marriage in trouble, because basically they were attracted to each other because they realized, you know, that he was submissive, she was dominant. They loved that about each other. But then basically Eliza, that's our heroine, her mom gets in her head and she's like, a wife should always be subservient to her husband. And so when they got married, she started acting very submissive, and he was like, wait, what's going on? What's happening? And so they end up separating because of like miscommunication basically. And so then they come back together because a friend of theirs is getting married, and it's just, it's amazing. It's all the fire emojis. This was my introduction to Nicola Davidson, and I was just completely blown away by how incredible this is. I also just love the environment of Fallen, the sex club. Like, it's just, it is so, so good. And in that same vein, number 2 on this countdown is going to be The Seduction of Vices. This is book 3, the final book of this novella series. And so this one is centering around Ian. He is the main like exhibitionist for Fallen, like I said, the sex club that this whole series centers around. And so he's like their main performer at this club. And then we have our heroine, Mary. This is a second chance romance because 10 years before they were betrothed to each other, she faked her death. This was bonkers. She faked her death, ends up in London. He ends up in London as well. And so now she is working for a rival sex club. She's trying to work her way up to being an exhibitionist performer as well. And so these two people are so perfect for each other in so many ways, and the angst was perfection. I cried reading this as well. Like, I was just so invested in these two people, and like I said, just how perfect they are for one another. And by the end, they end up being performers together at the club, and it's just so satisfying to read about. And it's just so satisfying too because, like I said, this is the 3rd book of the series, and so all 3 of the best friends are now happy and they're married, and it's just, it's it's exquisite. I am so excited because these 3 books have been turned into audiobooks because I saw that Hoopla has started releasing them. So I am definitely planning on rereading these via audio ASAP. And last but certainly not least, we have my #1 favorite romance novella that I read in 2021, and that is Hefty by Jessica Kane. This novella is truly on another level for Miss Jessica Kane. Once again, it's a new adult romance. Let me look up the character names again. We have Zach and Jill. This is a childhood friends to lovers story. They're in high school, and Jill is on the cheerleading squad, Zach is on the football team, but this is also one of Jessica Kane's big boy romances, so he's like a defensive lineman or something like that on the football team. He's a bigger guy. They have been pining for each other for quite a few years at this point, but it's one of those stories where they both don't feel worthy of the other. And basically one night Jill asks Zach if he will introduce her to intimacy, basically. And so things go on from there, and this was just exquisite. I cried multiple times reading this. The fact that Jessica Kane could make me care for these characters so quickly, because this is a very short novella. I believe it's only like 60-ish pages, but I was so invested in these two by like page 2. Like, I was completely sold, completely obsessed. Clearly, I don't even have the words to describe my love for this novella. It's incredible. I can't wait to reread it a million times throughout my life. It is so, so good. So if you are looking for where to start with Jessica Kane, definitely go with this novella or Breaking the Bully. And then with Nicola Davidson, I would start with The Devil's Submission like I did, because that was an amazing choice. So that's going to be it for this countdown of my top 10 favorite romance novellas of 2021. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I would also love it if you would leave a comment down below if you want to give me recommendations for romance novellas. I am always looking for new authors to try. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!